Hey, God bless you all. It's such a joy for me to be with all of you today. Thank you so much for dropping by. I have a very special session today. And here we are, Pastor John Burke, all the way from the United States of America, who's joining with us. And some of you might have already heard about him, seen him. And, he's been a great voice and he's been such a blessing in my life. I'm going to talk about it in just a minute. He's not only a best-selling author, including a New York Times best-selling book, which just came out. Imagine the God of Heaven, and he's been an important voice, especially in near-death experiences. People who are literally died and seen heaven or hell and come back if you didn't know what that is all about. And he also has a growing podcast and YouTube channel through which he shares these messages. And the best thing about him is that not only do we share the same first name, John, both of us have the same first name, but both of us are engineers. I'm an aerospace engineer, and he's also an engineer and a minister of the gospel. So it's so awesome to have you with us, Pastor. Thank you so much for joining in.
Hey John, I'm so glad that you invited me because I love India. I've been there many times, and uh, we have very good friends in India.
That's so good. Can't wait to have you here in person again, Pastor. Thank you so much. I just want to quickly start off by sharing a quick testimony on how I came to know you in the first place. The Lord uses me a lot in the aspect of the political situation in the United States of America to intercede. Have had a lot of encounters like. There were moments when the Lord took me in the spirit into the White House to pray over President Trump, and he let me lay my hand on his right shoulder and pray. And 2 days later, I came to know there was another prophetess in India who had the same encounter on the same day as I did. A lot of
Wow.
these kind of encounters where the Lord was clearly leading me in the prophetic to intercede. Even recently, we had the elections in the US, and the Lord led me to intercede, raise intercessors, pray. And because of that, I came to know of something that I was actually dealing with for the past a couple of months, where I would suddenly wake up in the night and I would have panic attacks. I'm just sharing this because this is a personal testimony
Mm.
where even though I'm a minister of the gospel, I've seen glimpses of hell. I've had a lot of encounters and miracles. Out of the blue, there were these attacks, panic attacks in the middle of the night, where I would wake up with that fear of like, what if everything I believed was wrong? What if Christianity was not the truth? Like people in
Mm.
a politics would just say that, you know what, this is the truth because I'm a Christian, or somebody else would say the same about an Islamic apologist. But that was the moment when I was having these panic attacks, and I was like, God, if I tell somebody else, they'll say, you're not fit to be a preacher. But
Mm.
that was when I was like, God, I want you to reveal yourself to me because I know that my heart is in the right place. I want to minister to you through you. And while I was doing that and I was following the situation about the US political scene, I came to know about your interview with Shawn Ryan. And
Mm.
I don't usually watch such long episodes. That was a 4 hour long episode. And I'm telling you, Pastor, God is my witness. Ever since then, I didn't have any panic attacks. I've been completely free. Like I know without a shadow of a doubt that what I preach is not theory, or I've been more convincing in the preaching of the gospel now, talking about heaven and hell. And now more people are getting saved through my ministry now because I've been more fervent in preaching about heaven and hell.
Mm.
So that's the way what you shared in that interview really changed my life. And that's why I was like determined to have you here, because I believe there are so many people who have these questions, or they may even have these kind of panic attacks. So I'm so glad that your ministry and your words helped me, and it is helping so many people today. And I believe that as you continue to walk in this calling, it's going to be a blessing to more people. I think you also have a story of being an agnostic where you doubted, if you were on the right track. Can you just speak a word to somebody who may be in a similar spot? Maybe they're an agnostic, or they may be having these kind of doubts like, am I really following the right path, or is this, just because I'm a Christian, I believe in Christianity?
Yeah. Well, first of all, what a blessing to hear that, John. Wow, you know, sometimes you just never know, right?
Yes,
Shawn and I have become friends, and you know, he just became a follower of Jesus, and
yes,
you know, and just to think the way the Lord is connecting us all over the world,
yes.
and that is why I'm doing what I'm doing now. But I didn't start there, like you said, and I'll just give you a little background. So I was trained as an engineer. I worked in engineering for a number of years. Um, I was, but my mind has always been very analytical, you know. So, you know, I grew up in the United States hearing about Jesus, just like if you grow up in India, you grow up hearing about Vishnu or Kali or Durga or, uh, many others, right? But I always ask the question, well, how do you know? You know, how do you know Jesus is the Son of God? How do you know there is a God? I mean, and I would ask people, and I wasn't getting good answers. I wasn't getting much of any answers. I think because not enough people really search, really seek. Um,
Mm,
and I concluded, you know, you just can't know. And I was an agnostic, so I believe Jesus was probably just a legend. You know, maybe a good teacher, but the
mm,
whole Son of God thing is just like mythology, and
mm,
that God, you just can't know if there's a God or not. And then my dad was dying of cancer, and someone gave him, this is almost 4 decades ago, and someone gave him the very first research on what is now called near death experiences. And this is when someone clinically dies. So literally their heart stops beating, they have no brain waves, and yet either modern medicine or just miracle resuscitates them. They come back, and they come back talking about being more alive than they've ever felt before, in a place more real than this has ever been, and many times in the presence of this God of light and love, that they never wanted to leave his presence. And I see this book on his bedside table, and I start reading it, and I couldn't put it down. And by the end of the night, I'd finished the book, and I said, "Oh my gosh, maybe this is the evidence I've been looking for, that this is real." And because so many of them were talking about this God of light and love, and many of them saw Jesus and knew he was Jesus, like he was this man of light,
mm,
brighter than the sun. And because of that, it opened my mind to consider, and I started to read the Bible. And I ended up coming to faith in Christ, um, so a year after that or so. But I was always still wanting to understand, okay, well, what are these near death experiences, and how do they relate to the Bible, and how do they relate to the other world's religions? So over the last, I mean, it's been 35, 40 years that I've studied close to 1,500, 1,500 near death experiences. I've interviewed people from all over the globe. I ended up leaving my career in engineering because of what I was learning as I was studying the Bible and studying these and how it fits together. And I ended up leaving my career in engineering to go into ministry. And my wife and I started a church, Gateway Church, 27 years ago for skeptics. So and we've seen people from every religious background come and explore faith, and when they're open to really seeking, they find. And so in 2015, I wrote a book, like you said, called Imagine Heaven. And in Imagine Heaven, what I was doing is I was taking these, at that time, over 1,000 near death experiences I'd studied. And you know, the way my engineering mind works, I would hear another or interview someone, and I'd go like, oh, I heard that over here, and I heard that over here. And I started to map the commonalities, and then look at how has that been revealed through the Bible throughout history. And I found about 40 commonalities of what people having these near death experiences describe in the life to come. And this is on every continent. And
mm,
so I was writing about those commonalities and what the life to come is going to be like. That's Imagine Heaven. And then recently, I actually passed the baton of leadership of the church that my wife and I founded, and I wrote a new book called Imagine the God of Heaven, and that's where I interviewed 70 new people from all over the planet, in India, in on every continent, literally, except Antarctica. There are no penguins having near-death experiences, but every other continent. And I'm showing that the God they are encountering in their near-death experience is the God of history who revealed himself through the Jewish prophets and ultimately through Jesus. And interestingly, I trace how in the Old Testament, all the way back, 4,000 years ago, before the founding of any of the world's religions, sacred scriptures, God says, and this is recorded in Genesis 12, he raises up two people, Abraham and Sarah, and he says, I'm going to make you into a nation, and through you, I'm going to bless all nations. And that is a common theme you see throughout the Jewish prophets. What Jesus said, the last thing he said after his death on the cross and his resurrection, he said, tell this message to all the nations. There's forgiveness offered in my name. And then the very last book of the Bible, John, one of Jesus' disciples who was taken in a vision to heaven, sees people from every nation, tribe, language, and people group there around the throne of God, worshiping God. So if you look at, and I have now studied and read a good portion of much of the world's sacred scriptures, in the world's religions, you won't find another deity who is consistently speaking to all people, to all nations. So this is the God of all nations. And that's what near-death experiencers are revealing. That's what they're testifying to. That they are experiencing not the God necessarily that they would have expected, but this God of light and love, who is personal, knows them intimately. And so I'm tracing that in Imagine the God of Heaven.
Okay. It's so good, like, because like you said about, how God connects. First of all, it's amazing because I don't know if you heard of someone called Megyn Kelly.
I
From
was on her
she's
show.
an You were on her show too?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So
I just sent her my new book with it's
oh,
signed.
that's nice. So I was following her, and it was Shawn Ryan who was interviewing her and told her to check out your videos, and because she was doubting or something like that, and then that see the way God connects, right? Like you just shared about how God has been so consistently speaking and how God is connecting. It's amazing because, guys, if even if you do have doubts or questions, don't feel bad on yourself. You may go through seasons like that. Like the reason I wanted Pastor to share his stories, I want you to understand that there is a lot of evidence, there is a lot of proof, but don't, even if you go through questions and doubts, don't feel bad on yourself. You can be a minister, you can be a Christian, you can go to church, but you can still go through questions and doubts. So that's why you're here, and that's why I want you to stay tuned.